Okay, this PowerPoint supports the human resources issue internal. This time we're looking at employment legislation. So this is a huge area, and the whole idea that we'll be looking at key pieces of legislation that cover employment in New Zealand, and as an overview, just understanding the minimum rights that employees have in being employed in New Zealand. Um, so first, what I think we've got to really establish is that there are a number of laws that have a bearing on how um, employees and employers interact in regards to the law. Um, so the legislation we're particularly looking at, which is particularly relevant, is the Minimum Wage Act, the Employment Relations Act, Health and Safety, Holidays Act, Equal Pay Act, and Human Rights Act. Now, as part of our internal, it's not necessary that we know these in depth. We're not studying law, we're studying business studies. So this is understanding the application of these in certain situations. Um, and in regards to the issues that come up, um, very often these are things which are evolving and changing as situations are coming up. So, for example, the Equal Pay Act, sorry, not the Equal Pay Act, the Minimum Wage Act is obviously relevant and it's being upheld. However, we now have an issue of the living wage, which is a different matter entirely, that has a bearing on the Minimum Wage Act. So really understanding this is that across all of these laws, what we do have is we have a minimum rights that each employee can understand and are entitled to. So within that, these rights are covered across the acts. What is important to understand is with law, although we have laws written down and they're black and white, you've either done it or you haven't done it type of thing, it's all down to interpretation and interpretation within the context. And because of that, we often have changes in circumstances and changes which mean that interpretations are slightly different in different situations. And because of that, the law is what we refer to as an evolving entity. It's living, it's breathing, it's changing all the time. And it's changing to keep up with society, and society's changes as well. Um, so, really, what we've got to understand is these minimum rights are also applied within the context of our employment contract or the situation. Um, However, generally speaking, when we're talking about rights that are covered across these types of legislation, we're looking at things such as annual holidays. We've established now that we generally, across the board, employees are entitled to 4 weeks, 20 days annual holidays. Likewise, they are entitled to a right of bereavement leave should they be in that situation. However, with the stipulation that this comes after 6 months' employment. Likewise, break entitlements. Pretty much sort of given now that is the entitlement. And it sort of works on the whole idea of pay 10 minutes for every 2 to 4 hours. Actually, the more you work, the more you're entitled to a break, the more you're entitled to a lunch break, whether or not that's paid or not. So this is what the law sets out. Now, the organisations themselves may differ, they may be a little bit more generous, but effectively this always has to be their bottom line. Added to this one, okay, an employment agreement. Every employee, that should be every, not very, every employee must have some form of written employment agreement, something that they can refer to, so they know what's expected to them, of them, and they know who to report to, etc. Should there be an issue with this agreement. Likewise, equal pay and rights. It goes on. With that being said, really that there shouldn't really be any issues with um, same pay for the same people with the same skill for the same gender. However, there are issues which are occurring at the minute. At the minute, a big one is all about there is a discrepancy between the genders in terms of pay and to an extent rights. Fixed term employees. So fixed term employees are allowed to be employed on a fixed term basis when the work situation requires. Largely, it should be just ongoing. However, there are times when an organisation can choose to offer a fixed term contract. If an employee has a carer responsibility, i.e., they're looking after a family member, along those sort of lines, within this area, the law says that flexible working conditions should be permitted. Likewise, health and safety, which is a really big one. All employees must work in a health and safe environment, which means employers have got to provide that healthy and safe environment. So the employer's responsibility really is down also as well to keep an accurate record of all the employees' information, their personal details, how much time they've worked, how much they paid, their leave entitlements. Added to this, okay, there should be a minimum pay wage, okay, as explained through the law. This can start from the age of 16. Wages should be paid in cash, legally. However, in today's society, this is probably a little bit a little bit old-fashioned, and so today very often people are paid through bankers' automated clearing systems, so from bank to bank. Public holidays. Employees are entitled to public holidays off work, and if they do have to work, then they should be entitled to days in lieu. So really understanding the further rights that there's sick leave. Okay, everyone should be entitled to sick leave. Parental leave, which is a very much, you can say that shows a discrepancy between men and women as well. But employees must be eligible for paid and unpaid parental leave. Obviously, there is also a distinction between maternity pay and paternity pay. There may be other leave rights, and overall, to employ someone in New Zealand, they must have the right to work, and that tends to imply that the visa must be present. A controversial one recently is employers can make an offer of employment that has a trial period of up to 90 days. It's very controversial because it's so short, but it basically means that people can be fired on the spot within 90 days. And overall, all employees have the right to decide to join